So guys, it's Jake with Team Tactical. Come to another special video. Today, we are looking at the KUSA KP9. A very fun, very exciting AK powered 9mm that you can get to this day. I picked this up online for roughly about like 800 bucks, something like that. I first saw one of these at the PSA gathering with CMC. They had their 2-pound trigger in here. I got a chance to try one of these with the 2-pound trigger, and I thought, my God, I need to get one of these.
What do you think?
Holy cow, dude.
Run another mag through it, man.
Dude, this thing is incredible. Woo, man. Yeah, so I did. Based off the Russian PP-19, more commonly known as the Vityaz, this is essentially the Russians' answer to the HK MP5. Very similar. It's got a little curved mag well, very kind of short body here. Obviously, you don't need a buffer tube or anything back here, much like an MP5. It's simply AK-47, but small. And for those of you that play Call of Duty Warzone 2, this is the Vaznev 9K. It's essentially the exact same thing of that, just a different name for copyright. We're gonna go over all the specs and features of this particular sweet little AK, why you may want to get one of these. There are some pros and there's also a couple of cons that you need to be aware of as well before you make that purchase, which we will cover all of that in this video and help you make a good informed decision if this is something right for you. Let's just see where this thing, we're just gonna get a trigger pull here, see how it feels. Again, we're not zeroed. Let's just see where it's lined up here. Okay. Okay.
All high right.
Yep. Safety on.
This, folks, is a fantastic example of poor accuracy, but fantastic precision.
And just so you know, we will go ahead and show you. It is unloaded and clear. So starting with just a tip, you do have a muzzle brake here, a small muzzle brake. Not really sure if it does too much for you with 9mm, but it's there. It does thread onto a 1/2x28 onto a 9¼ inch barrel. You see that little pin there, that little thing, just like AKs that you may have seen before. It's actually going to pop up there to kind of hold it in place, much like full-size regular AKs do. But it's essentially just a set pin to kind of keep the brake in place from untwisting when you don't want to.
His eyes still.
Let's do some steel, you ready?
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I reckon that works. Now you'll notice right here I've got a little bit of a different handguard. It's more of like a cheese grater style. This actually came with the KP9, the one I got. It does have Picatinny rail up top there, and it's also got your M-LOK slots on the left and right side there. And then you've also got, like you just see there, a Picatinny rail at the very bottom. And if you want, you can get these on Collision College USA's website as well. You do have what looks like a very standard AK front sight, and you've got your little rear adjustable sight buoy, just like regular AKs have. Now, one important detail you need to be aware of is that this is not a long stroke gas piston system. It is direct blowback, much similar to your AR9s and other similar category firearms such as this. MP5, of course, being like a delay blowback, this one is direct blowback. Now we do have a light on here from Valhalla Tactical attached with the M-LOK that fits very nice, very snug. I enjoy that. It's snug right up next to it without issue or anything like that. A little bit of gas sometimes blows onto the glass, but you just wipe it out, it's just fine. So far I haven't had any issues with the recoil being too much for it. It's held up really well. Of course, if you want to check out more about this kind of light, we do have a review from them as well. Normally when you put a light on, there's usually like fitting issues where it might just be a little bit too snug and it bumps into the light head or the tail switch or whatever. But this one just sits perfectly on there. I won't even be able to really show it on camera, but it just, like, it kind of touches right there and just, like, that's it. Just that one spot there. Moving further back, you do have sort of your traditional AK style body, lower and upper. You've got your dimples there. Do they actually function and do anything for you? Probably not really, to be honest with you, but they're there to kind of give it that traditional AK style look. Here we do have a Meprolite M21. That is the tritium and fiber optic sight that the Israelis use. You'll notice we've got mounted with a Picatinny rail here direct with the dust cover. That actually comes with the KP9. You'll see it's on a hinge, which is kind of unique, kind of nice. I like that. But you'll see this is kind of more just for looks. It's actually not functional. There's not gas pulling up to push that piston back. Again, it's just a direct blowback system.
I can't find my red dot.
A lot of times when you have a pick rail on a dust cover like this, there's concern about losing zero as you fire because sometimes that dust cover might rattle and move. I've not really had that problem with this. The dust cover seems to be very firmly snug on there, and we've tried a couple of different optics. We've used an EOTech, a SIG Romeo 5. None of those optics have lost zero in the testing and evaluation of this firearm.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a lot of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Moving back here, you do have a 5mm hinged thing. I'll put the text down below of what it's actually called. You can actually put a stock on or a pistol brace, or if you choose to not do it, then you can just use that hole there as sort of like a QD attachment point for your actual sling. Okay, so since the ATF has decided to cut us, we're going to come out here and shoot this with the SAS sling method. Hopefully the brace nonsense will end soon, or maybe we'll just form one this and you'll see a future video on that. We'll see. Maybe this will be part of that video. Got a SIG Romeo 5 on here. It is not zeroed at all. Let's just see how she does. I think we're out. Yeah, we're out that time. I like it. Not crazy about the trigger pull. Let's talk about the trigger pull. We are empty there, clear, dry fire. So she's kind of a hefty boy. You know, this is supposed to be like the Russian MP5. You start pulling, got a little bit of take up right there. That feels roughly about 5 pounds. So kind of heavy. You start pulling and it clicks right through, giving you roughly the feeling of about 6.5 pounds. So very, very heavy. Very similar to an MP5 or SP5 or whatever you might have, similar to that. Reset. So lots of movement forward, kind of pushed me a little bit past the reset point there. Pull again. And right there, soft, not soft, nothing soft about this, a solid trigger click. Again, reset. When you're at this point, at that wall, it does feel like 6, maybe 6.5 pounds. It's pretty heavy. When you're at the wall, you're at the wall. It's not like, oh, it's a fake wall or there's further to go. It does feel like once you get past that initial take up, you are at the wall. You know what that wall feels like every time. Now, we are going to go ahead and put in an upgrade trigger in here, but YouTube won't let me show you that. So there is your CMC Aftermarket trigger, 2 pound. You start pulling, instant break. There's a little fall through, but not much. Quick reset. Okay. Oh, just a slight reset and quick pull right there. One could argue that I actually bought the firearm in order to justify having the trigger. That's just me. I've always been kind of wary about putting in aftermarket parts into an AK because unlike ARs, a lot of times your tolerances are not exactly to spec, like 1 for every AK pattern firearm you use. And they even tell you that with CMC's trigger, that was made in correlation with Kalashnikov. They say, hey, this may have some tolerance issues fitting into your firearm, even though it was made in collaboration with Kalashnikov USA. 100% worth it though. Highly recommend it. But like I said earlier, this was not a 100% to spec, even in the KP9 that I have here. You see how it's a little bit of a rough metal look there on the pins? I actually had to take my Dremel out and sort of just put a little grinding and just use a little grinder stone to just kind of get some of that metal off just on the edge here where it comes through the other side of the lower receiver. I had to do that because no matter how many times I tried, I just could not get both pins to go through without kind of trimming the edge of one of them a little bit to be a little skinnier to fit through the hole. You get what I'm saying. The point being is, if you do get one of these triggers to put into one of your AKs, or say a KP9 like this, you might have to just do a little bit of drilling work just to get a nice fit. And try not to grind too much because you don't want to ruin your pins. You're out.
Yeah, boy.
You like that?
I do.
Yeah, Daddy likes that. You like that? Look at him asserting dominance. Now, let's talk about what I don't like about this particular gun. Two major things. Number one is how the safety works with my aftermarket trigger. You see, with the stock trigger, the safety functions just fine. For some reason, when I put the aftermarket trigger in, the safety seemed to no longer function correctly and do what it's supposed to do. With the stock trigger, you know, if you got pulled up like this, you pull it, it's not gonna, you know, go back and you won't be able to pull the trigger. Well, let's say you had it down like this. Let's say you're trying to make ready for a stage. You pull it back, you got the trigger locked back, ready to go, and then you say, okay, you got to put on safe. This is just something to be aware about. So now it's safe, you see it, watch. The trigger still goes off. Now, if that were to happen, I haven't tested it yet, but if that were to happen, one could imagine that this reciprocating charging handle would come back and smack into that safety, and I'm guessing that would stop it, but I also worry that may end up doing some damage to the safety itself, maybe bend the metal or just do some damage to your charging handle one way or the other. That's going to come back really fast and really hard and possibly break something. So that's a big problem. Obviously, you don't want to have it on safe and you aim it at something and accidentally pull the trigger because it's a 2-pound trigger and it just goes off and you shoot something you're not trying to shoot. Huge safety concern there. However, in my opinion, what I've decided to do is just kind of treat this like a Glock or any other handgun that doesn't have a manual safety. I assume that if I'm holding it, it's going to always be loaded, and if I pull the trigger, it's always going to fire, no matter which direction the safety's on. Now again, that was only with the aftermarket trigger I put in. If you keep the stock trigger in there, it shouldn't be a problem. I didn't experience any issue like that with the stock trigger. The second thing you need to be aware of is that the KP9 does not do well with flat nose rounds. God, these fucking flat nose.
Did it do bad?
It's just not going in.
Do we need to retake?
We had a lot of issues with getting it to be consistent and reliable with flat nose. Only with flat nose. This gun works great with round nose, 115 grain, 124 grain, as well as 147 grain, all with the round nose. It was only when we put in flat nose, 147 grain, that we start having an issue. The point is, much like an MP5, that also doesn't do well with flat nose, this one will not do well with flat nose either. At this time, we have put in roughly about 500 rounds-ish, something like that. We shot a lot. We've tried a few different setups, a few different optics on here. Currently like the Meprolite M21, but that may change. We may get back to the Sig Romeo, I don't know. It's a very fun gun. Now, because of all the ATF shenanigans, again, I don't have a pistol brace back here, much less a stock. However, I am thinking about going ahead and getting this SBR'd, putting a vertical grip up here, as well as a stock after that comes through, and doing a follow-up video, sort of like part of like my final review. Is that something you would like to see? Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see how it looks after that. But all in all, we really enjoyed this gun. Very flat shooting, even with using the sling technique, very flat shooting, very fun. Obviously the trigger does help with some of the fun factor there. Very easy to do rapid follow-up shots, almost to the point where it seems like, it almost looks like it's full auto, but it's not. Manual reviewer, it's not full auto. It's semi-automatic. Look carefully. When you go and look at the footage, you'll see I pulled the trigger every time. And it's something we may do a follow-up review on just for that too. So yeah, all in all, I really like it. It's been a lot of fun. We've really enjoyed it. Definitely plan on doing a follow-up review on it, but I may SBR it first beforehand just to make it a little bit more chef's kiss. I like it. Should you get one? Absolutely. If you're into sort of the Vityaz, Vaznev, 9K Call of Duty kind of gun. I mean, this is a true blue original representation of that firearm. It's essentially Vityaz for civilians, and for that, I really like it. Yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the video there. Remember, if you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below. Have you picked up a KP9? Do you think we should SBR it for our follow-up review? Love to hear from you. We will see you next time. With the SAS brace, not brace.
Oh, you said the algorithm word. They're on to us now.
All right, so we're gonna, shit. I f***ed it up.